Thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Absolutely.
Brian Kemp says you want to raise taxes. Will you raise taxes to do the things you want to do as governor?
We have laid out how we can pay for every single thing we want to do within the current budget of the state of Georgia. My intention is not to raise taxes, it's to raise our expectations of our leaders and to make certain that we're doing the best job we can by reorganizing our priorities to focus on education, job creation, and healthcare.
Okay. You say your intention is not to raise taxes. Would you pledge not to raise taxes?
I don't make pledges, in part because that is done for political benefit, and what I want people to know is what my intentions are. Every single leader walks into the State House wanting to do the best job possible, and I do not intend to raise taxes in the state of Georgia.
Brian Kemp says he's not going to expand Medicaid for the same reason Governor Deal didn't, and that's because it's a big government program that doesn't work, that doctors won't be taking patients. Your response?
First of all, Mr. Kemp fundamentally misunderstands the healthcare finance system in the state of Georgia. We currently spend $1.75 billion a year on people who do not have access to health insurance. Health insurance is how we fund our system. Medicaid expansion simply allows the state of Georgia to stop spending $1.75 billion and to cut that rate in half by actually accessing taxpayer dollars that have already been paid into the system. We put in roughly $250 million. We will draw down $3 billion. We will save rural hospitals. We'll create 56,000 jobs in Georgia, and we will cover 473,000 Georgians, including 32,000 military families and their spouses. These are all good numbers for Georgia. 33 states have expanded Medicaid, including a majority of which are run by Republicans. This is not partisan, and this is not a problem. We do know that doctors actually see higher reimbursement rates. They're more willing to take Medicaid patients when they know that reimbursement rates can meet their needs, and that's one of the things Medicaid expansion allows us to do. Fully fund our healthcare system to the level that allows doctors and nurses to see patients and provide the services they wish to provide.
Okay, but how can you add hundreds of thousands of people to the rolls, able-bodied folks, without it straining the services for poor families and the disabled who Medicaid was intended to help?
Medicaid expansion is premised on the idea that health insurance is how we provide access to health care in America. That's the system. And in Georgia, we have 500,000 people who do not have that health insurance. But poor people still go to the doctors. Working people who work full-time jobs, or actually tend to work 2 part-time jobs that don't provide health insurance, still take advantage of our healthcare system. The problem is they can't pay, and so the rest of us pay the tab. My plan is for them to be able to pay for themselves using access to the Medicaid expansion system. That's what it was designed for. It will not decrease services to anyone. In fact, it will increase our ability to serve senior citizens by allowing them to stay in their homes, by getting access to in-home health care. It will help us serve the intellectually, developmentally disabled populations who currently don't get all the supports they need because we don't have the staffing we need. Medicaid expansion will increase the supply of doctors, the supply of nurses, the supply of hospitals and clinics. It improves our healthcare system overall. Kentucky has seen these benefits. Indiana has seen these benefits. Ohio has seen these benefits. All are states that are run by Republicans. And so it is not only untrue, it is false to suggest that Medicaid expansion is anything other than a good deal for the state of Georgia. And 70% of Georgians agree with me.
Okay, let's talk about voter suppression. Brian Kemp says your accusations against him are a lie, his word. He says that, more people are registered now than ever before, that some people didn't fill out the forms properly. He's just enforcing the law. Your response?
In 2016, Brian Kemp was held liable by a federal judge who said that he was using a system that was illegal, that had a disproportionate effect on women and people of color. The judge forced him to restore 34,000 illegally canceled registrations. Brian Kemp then turned around and got the state to pass the exact same system that he knew would disproportionately affect people of color. That's why he's in trouble, because he's doing something he knew was wrong. But it's not just the 53,000. It's the 200 polling places that he shut down. It's the fact that he has encouraged voter suppression across the state of Georgia. And he cannot take credit for the population increase in the state of Georgia. Yes, there are more people registered because more people live here. You cannot take credit for something when your actions have actually served to purge more voters in the state of Georgia than any other state in the nation. That is not a success record. That is a record of failure, a record of failing public trust, and it's a record that no one should get a promotion once that's the record they have.
Okay. You've said that the blue wave is comprised of the documented and the undocumented, and the Republicans have jumped on you for that. Now, it is sort of commonly understood that the blue wave is the electoral wave that Democrats hope will restore them to power. So why would you bring up the undocumented in that context?
If you listen to the speech I gave, I, in fact, was pointing out that the blue wave was not just about elections. It was about the kind of Georgia we wanted to see. what kind of results we wanted to have in our state. And what I was saying is that we want a result where everyone is included and everyone has access to opportunity, including dreamers, those young people who come to our state, brought not of their own volition, but who graduate from our high schools and deserve to go to our colleges. Taken into full context and not cherry picking my words, that everyone understood exactly what I meant. Unfortunately, Mr. Kemp doesn't have a record to stand on, and he has no plans for Georgia. And so instead, his campaign is largely comprised of insulting me, lying, and cherry picking words to try to create a frame that does not fit. I have progressive values that are Georgia values: education, access to health care, making sure people have good jobs. I run my campaign based on my personal values of faith and family and service and a sense of responsibility. As governor, my responsibility is going to be to support everyone in the state of Georgia, including law enforcement who shouldn't be on food stamps, including those who serve our state every day. That's my mission, and that's why I'm running for governor.
What do you make of President Trump's plan to send troops to the southern border to repel the so-called caravan of migrant refugees?
I think the federal government needs to do its job and actually pass comprehensive immigration reform. I think the histrionics that President Trump is trying to drum up are purely driven by an issue of politics. But more importantly, I think we need to have safe borders. We need to have security in our country, but we also need to have pathways to citizenship. And I'm the only candidate with a plan to make certain that we as the state of Georgia do our best for those who live within our state, including making sure that drug traffickers and human traffickers are not allowed in our country or in our state, and that those who commit violent crimes are held accountable. But that is a distraction from what needs to be focused on in the state of Georgia, which is that the governor's job is to protect and serve everyone in our state, and that's my mission.
Okay. If Oprah had called you and said, Stacey, I'd love to come down and campaign with you, the only time I can come is Sunday afternoon when you're scheduled to debate your opponent, what would you have said?
I would have said that I'm excited to have you here, but I've made a commitment. And here's the thing, we negotiate these things all the time. When Oprah called me, she asked when she could come. And we talked about her schedule, we talked about our schedule. When President Obama offered to come down, we talked about the schedule. I am shocked to understand that Mr. Kemp had no conversations with Donald Trump. I will say this, we all take our commitments to the degree of seriousness we attribute them. I made a commitment. I was going to show up at 5 o'clock. I promised people we were going to be in South Georgia on Monday, and I'm not going to break my promise because Brian Kemp breaks his.
Okay. The Kavanaugh hearing certainly energized a lot of Republicans. Who did you believe, him or Dr. Ford?
I believe Dr. Ford, but I think the issue with Brett Kavanaugh went deeper than the accusations. It was also a function of temperament and of truthfulness. A judge is responsible for adjudicating right and wrong, truth and dishonesty, and he did not display the characteristics that would make me trust that he is doing the right thing. But I think the larger conversation that is embedded is that we should believe victims. We should not force women or men who are victims of sexual violence to be held to a higher standard. As governor, my mission is going to be to make certain that we have laws on our books that protect families, that protect victims of sexual violence, and that trust victims and treat them with the respect that they should be accorded.
Okay, one last question. I appreciate the generous time that you've given us. Given all your concern about voter suppression in the state, do you feel like this is going to be a fair election when all is said and done?
I think the antidote to voter suppression is voter engagement. That's why we've been traveling in the state for 3 weeks, encouraging people to vote early. We know that if we overwhelm our democracy with actual votes, then we will win this election. And in fact, my opponent agrees. He said that he was concerned that if everyone who is eligible in the state of Georgia actually cast a ballot, he would not win. My goal is to encourage Georgians to prove him right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Russ. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you very much.